Today's talk is entitled Bodhicitta, Awakening Heart and Mind. And it's been written that Shakyamuni Buddha said many times to his disciples and other people that gathered for his teachings that we are never separated from enlightenment, that we are never alienated from the awakened state. And we can think of this, I think, like the sky. It's always there. It's always available. It's like our true nature. And at the time, of course, it was considered a revolutionary idea that each and every one of us with all of our confusions and our delusions and maybe our messed up lives, that we are never separated from enlightenment, from bodhicitta. In Sanskrit, bodhi means awakened, enlightened, completely open. And citta means mind, but it can also mean heart. It can also mean attitude. So in Mahayana Buddhism, it's the mind, heart, citta that is aimed at awakening, bodhi, with wisdom and compassion for the benefit of all sentient beings. Or we might say this another way, we have the wholehearted aspiration to awaken fully in order to benefit others. Now the title I chose, Bodhicitta, Awakening Heart and Mind, appeals to me because of the form of the word awakening. In English, as you know, the use of the ing form for awakening in the title indicates this continuous nature of something or something we're doing. It's an ongoing presence, a continuation. It isn't something already accomplished or realized, so much as it suggests just our ongoing aspiration to keep awakening. And you know, this aspiration is quite vast. Just think about it. We wish to awaken not partially, but fully. And it's vast also because we wish to awaken so that we can benefit not just some, but all sentient beings. And then we go even further, as if that wasn't enough for us. We aspire to benefit all beings, not just at the level of maybe helping provide housing, or food, or alleviating fear, or abuse, or the effects of environmental crisis, but also at the level of helping them help themselves so that they too can wake up fully. We want everyone, all beings, on a global scale, to fulfill their own potential too. And this is rather unique to Mahayana Buddhism, in that even if we've achieved enlightenment and nirvana, we stay. We stay in order to do all those things I've just mentioned. And we can have this aspiration, in my opinion, because we trust what the Buddha understood, that all of us are never separated from enlightenment, that we are never alienated from the awakened state. And in fact, we're already fully awakened, along with him and all beings upon his own enlightenment. So we understand that bodhicitta then has two main aspects, the compassionate mind and a pure good heart that sincerely wants to relieve the suffering of all beings, with no exceptions. And in order to do this, we understand that we need to awaken our own natural purity of mind and attain enlightenment. And neither of these is an easy road to walk, as we know. Realizing our true Buddha nature takes time and effort. And I think the extent to which we understand is related to, of course, the extent to which our mind has been encumbered and closed off by the layers of protection and delusion that we humans create in our lifetimes. But awaken we must if we're going to support others. And as they say, if we ourselves are neck deep in the mud, it's hard to pull anyone else out. You know, any experiences we have, particularly very strong emotions like anger and jealousy, are doorways to Bodhicitta, our awakening heart and mind. In the Bodhisattva vows we often chant at the end of our program on Sunday, we say Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. We are willing to take the next step, the necessary step, continuously toward Bodhicitta. You know, I had a conversation recently with a really good friend of mine, and I've known this person for 50 years. We met in 1974. And I've noticed how time and age for both of us has helped us to soften and to open up to each other so that we can really have more honest and open discussions, more vulnerability and trust with each other. And somehow this conversation last week turned to the time when, 23 years ago actually, when I decided to quit smoking. So I've been sober since then. And we both remember most of those details about that day that I asked her to come talk to me. And I told her that I had arranged to go into a rehab for some days. And I asked her to drive me there the following week, which of course she was willing to do. And we mostly remembered this story of how I came to this decision and how I was feeling and acting at the time. And we mostly remembered it in the same way, mostly. But there was a part of this story that we remembered differently, and it was related to what we call reaching the bottom. That low point, when I said, okay, that's enough, that's it. And I learned in rehab that during those 4 days that or so that I was there, that everyone's hitting bottom, everyone's lowest point is different. Now, interestingly, however, my friend and I didn't remember the details of the lowest point. It seems strange. So we discussed it, with both of us quite sure of our own memory of this. You know, what was it exactly that made me think, okay, this is it? Her story being what she remembered me telling her, and my story being what I remember feeling and doing and thinking, which motivated me to want to stop drinking. Now, it should appear obvious, maybe, to all of you that I should remember this very clearly. But because she had a differing opinion, I was questioning myself about it. Not in front of her, though. I said, nope, this is what actually happened. But it was an interesting conversation, truly. And at the end of this, really, it was friendly and heartfelt chat. We both said, okay. And I both think we seemed to think that our version was correct. And that was fine. There were no arguments. There were no conflicts. We just, moved on. However, I've been thinking about this. I've been thinking about this discrepancy since that conversation last week and thinking, is she right? Did I actually tell her the version she remembers? Or can I trust myself? Can I trust that what I was living and experiencing at the time is actually what I remember today? Well, Buddhism has taught me a lot. And one thing is that we shouldn't hold strong and fast really to anything, much less what our minds conjure up. In fact, here in the Zendo on the wall, we have posted on our corkboard the poignant sentence, "Don't believe everything you think." And it's so true. To be honest, I don't think I'm going to be able to figure this difference out, but maybe I will. Figure out what really I said and what it was that triggered me. But at the same time, I think that's not all that important. Not all that important to figure that part out. What's important, of course, is just noticing how very sure I was and then questioning that. I had to ask myself, was I protecting myself from a very hard truth that I didn't want to today, 23 years later, admit to? And, honestly, I've worked a lot on this. My challenges and my heartbreak and my embarrassment around this. I've worked on it a lot over many, many decades. So I really feel that, in the end, what really matters now is what and where I am today. But why am I telling you this? Well, I want to share something that Pema Chodron has said and written about this, our beloved Tibetan abbess and teacher. She calls Bodhicitta the soft spot. She says that our awakening heart and mind is as vulnerable and tender as an open wound. And it's nothing less than our ability to love. And she shares a quote from her root teacher, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, who said, "Everybody loves something, even if it's tortillas." So even the seemingly most heartless human or the most vicious animal has the capacity to love something. A lion shows care and love toward his cubs. An essential aspect of bodhicitta then is love and compassion, and our ability to feel the pain we share with others. Now, we of course share a lot more than just pain. We share joy, happiness, all kinds of things. But the key to bodhicitta, it seems, is our ability to feel our shared pain. Often though, of course, we're protecting ourselves from this. We build walls, which we can easily strengthen through any number of harmful emotions like anger and jealousy and pride. But in Pema Chodron's teachings, this soft spot that is bodhicitta can be seen and experienced as a crack in these very walls that insulate to protect us. Our practice, Zazen, our path, Zen, supports us in finding this crack, this opening. And in her words, we can seize that vulnerable moment, be it feelings of inadequacy, great love, embarrassment, loneliness, gratitude. We can seize that to awaken bodhicitta. In fact, her analogy for bodhicitta is the rawness of a broken heart. Sometimes she says this rawness gives birth to anxiety and panic, which we can probably relate to. Sometimes to anger and resentment and blame. But under that armor, there is the tenderness of genuine sadness. And this is our link to all those who have ever loved, she says. This can teach us compassion. When we're arrogant, we can be humbled by it. If we're unkind, it can soften us. This continual ache of the heart, she says, is a blessing that when accepted fully can be shared with all. The trick, of course, is to stay with the soft spot, the bodhicitta, and not harden over it or around it. That's the basic bodhicitta instruction. Stay with the soft spot. And this, I think, is why I shared the story. Because in spite of my friend and I having differing memories of what was this, hitting bottom for me, I could still feel the rawness of my broken heart. I could still experience the soft spot, the crack, and I could stay there, not turn away. When I was in the rehab facility, and it wasn't there very long actually, surprisingly, but this soft spot that now I'm calling bodhicitta supported my capacity to really feel what I was going through, what I was experiencing within myself. At the same time, it supported my acute awareness of our shared humanity, our deep connectedness, our non-separation from each other and all things. I so vividly remember a particular afternoon there. I was sitting outside at a patio table, and there was a woman seated across from me, and she was really obviously struggling physically from her addiction, which I never did. I'm grateful. But she started to chat with me, and she eventually asked me if I had a job. I told her I was an instructor. And she just stared at me, really for quite a long time. She just stared at me. And I just looked back at her. And then after a while, she said, I can't believe someone like you, an instructor, has problems like this too. You know, that brought me to tears then, and it really affects me now. Still very emotional about that moment. Because this one sentence contains both realities that we talk about so often and we practice with so often and we study so often. That is, the delusion that we are separate from each other, right next to the reality of our interconnectedness. You know, I observed so much and learned so much and opened my heart and mind so much during those few days. And I'm to this day really grateful to each of the women that I interacted with at that time. Women whose hitting bottom was so different from mine, but at the same time, exactly the same. So as Pema Chodron said, Bodhicitta, our awakening heart and mind, is as vulnerable and tender as an open wound, and it is nothing less than our ability to love.